The signal. In the dimly lit operations room of the Alaska Global Monitoring Station, the steady hum of machinery and the occasional beep from the computers filled the air. Dr. Alan Torres, the head of the monitoring team, leaned over a console, his eyes scanning the lines of data streaming across the screen. Beside him, his colleague, Dr. Max Jensen, sipped his coffee, peering over Alan's shoulder. "Still chasing shadows, Alan?" Max asked, a playful smirk on his face. Alan didn't look up. "These aren't shadows," he muttered, adjusting the settings on the console. "There's something out there, and it's structured." Just then, the room's atmosphere shifted as a series of unusual patterns began to emerge on the screen. The signals were unlike anything they had recorded before, irregular yet consistent, complex yet distinctly artificial. "Hey, come look at this," Alan called out. Max set his coffee down, leaning in closer. "What have you got?" "It's a signal, but nothing from any known satellites or space debris," Alan explained, his voice tinged with excitement. As the patterns continued to unfold, Dr. Sarah Lee, another team member, joined them. "Could it be a new satellite from another country?" she asked, squinting at the data. "No way. It's coming from much farther than any human-made object has ever traveled," Max replied, his earlier skepticism fading. The trio quickly began documenting every aspect of the signal, noting its characteristics. Alan contacted the station director, Dr. Eric Nolan, who rushed over to see the discovery for himself. Eric, a tall man with graying hair, entered the room briskly. "What's the excitement about?" he inquired, his voice a mix of curiosity and command. "Eric, look at this sequence. It's unlike anything we've ever seen," Alan said, pointing at the screen. The group huddled around the monitors, discussing the potential origins of the signals. The room was alive with a buzz of theories and conjectures. Could this be an encrypted message? Or a navigation signal gone rogue? Sarah pondered aloud. Or maybe it's a call for help. Max added, half joking. Eric rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Whatever it is, the signal wasn't intended for us. But here we are, listening. We need to figure out its purpose." Alan proposed a bold plan. "What if we try to respond? Maybe we can establish some sort of communication." Eric considered this for a moment. "That's risky without knowing who is on the other end. But it's an opportunity we can't ignore. Alan, prepare a response protocol. Max, Sarah, assist him in every way. We need to be cautious yet proactive." The team sprang into action, fueled by a mix of adrenaline and curiosity. Alan led the charge, drafting a simple, non-invasive signal pattern to send back. Max reviewed the historical data for any similar occurrences, while Sarah worked on isolating and strengthening their transmission capabilities. As the response signal was prepared, the sense of anticipation grew. Together, they initiated the transmission sequence, sending a greeting into the vast expanse of space, not knowing what or who would answer. The room fell silent as they waited. The decision to respond had been unanimous, a testament to their collective curiosity and dedication to discovery. They knew the risks but also the unparalleled opportunity before them, a chance to possibly connect with an entirely new form of intelligence. "So, we've just sent a text message to outer space. Now we wait and see if anyone picks up the phone," Max joked, trying to lighten the mood. Eric smiled, watching the data stream. "Yes, and let's hope they're friendly." As they monitored the systems, the gravity of their action began to settle in. They had reached into the unknown, tapped on the vast cosmic door, and now stood by, waiting for an answer. Chapter 2. First Contact. Back at the Alaska Global Monitoring Station, the team had been working around the clock since sending the response signal into deep space. Dr. Alan Torres, Dr. Max Jensen, and Dr. Eric Nolan huddled together in the main control room, their eyes fixed on the screens, watching for any anomaly that might suggest a reply. "Anything yet?" Max asked, rubbing his tired eyes as he glanced at the incoming data streams. "Not a blip," Alan replied, his voice a mix of fatigue and anticipation. "Do you think we'll actually get a response, or did we just shout into the cosmic void?" Before Eric could respond, a series of soft pings echoed through the control room. Every head turned toward the main monitor, where a new pattern of signals began to emerge. This time, they were unmistakably different, structured, rhythmic, and deliberate. "Holy! Are you seeing this?" Max exclaimed, leaning in closer. Alan quickly began to analyze the incoming data. "It's a response. It has to be. Look at the repetition, the intervals. This isn't random. It's communication." Eric, ever the skeptic, cautioned, "Let's not jump to conclusions. We need to verify the source and ensure it's not a satellite or a reflection we missed." But as the team ran checks and cross-references, the origin of the signal remained clear. It was coming from the same distant point in space from which the original signal had originated. After several hours of analysis and careful consideration, Eric made the decision to escalate the situation. "We need to inform NASA, and possibly the United Nations. This could be first contact, and it's bigger than just us." The team drafted a detailed report and sent it up the chain of command. The response was swift. Within hours, top officials from various international space agencies and diplomats were en route to the station. As they awaited the arrivals, Alan and Max set up a secondary monitoring station dedicated to the new signals. They worked together, poring over every piece of data they could collect. "Look at this sequence here," Alan pointed out. "It repeats but gradually evolves. It's almost like they're trying to teach us something." Max nodded, his excitement palpable. "Like a language tutorial? Are we about to have our first interstellar language lesson?" When the officials arrived, led by a stern-looking representative from NASA named Dr. Robert Hayes, the team presented their findings. Hayes listened intently, his eyes narrowing as he considered the implications. "Your procedure from here on needs to be meticulous," Hayes instructed. "We are potentially dealing with an advanced civilization. We must be cautious in our communications to avoid any misinterpretation or threat." Under Hayes's guidance, the team began to craft a new set of signals, basic, mathematical, and non-threatening. As they worked, the reality of their situation began to sink in. They were not just scientists anymore. They were ambassadors on the frontier of human-alien relations. As the new signals were sent, the team gathered around the monitors, waiting for another reply. The atmosphere was tense, a mix of nervous anticipation and historical gravity. Finally, the screen flickered with a new message, more complex and longer than the last. This time, the message was accompanied by visual data, a series of abstract symbols and images. "They're really talking to us," Max whispered, almost in disbelief. Eric stood back, observing the historic moment. "This is it," he said quietly. "We're not alone in the universe." The chapter closes as the team, now joined by international experts, begins the slow process of decoding the message, aware that every step forward changes the course of human history. They work together, united by a common goal, to bridge the gap between humanity and a previously unknown alien civilization. Chapter 3. The Arrival. The atmosphere at the United Nations headquarters was charged with anticipation and a palpable sense of history in the making. Delegates from around the world gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall, whispering in various languages, their eyes turning frequently to the large digital screen at the front. Dr. Eric Nolan, Dr. Alan Torres, and Dr. Max Jensen, along with NASA's Dr. Robert Hayes, were at the center of it all, preparing to introduce their extraterrestrial visitors to the world. We've coordinated with their ship for a live feed. They should be entering our atmosphere any moment now, Hayes briefed the team, checking the communication setup. Max, unable to contain his excitement, quipped, "Do we roll out the red carpet, or is that too much?" "Just let's hope they come in peace," Alan replied, half joking, adjusting his tie nervously. As the designated time approached, the room darkened slightly, and all eyes fixed on the screen. A live feed from an orbiting satellite displayed the Thaloshan spacecraft. It was a magnificent sight, sleek and shimmering, reflecting the sun's rays as it descended smoothly towards Earth. "Here they come," Eric announced, his voice steady despite the butterflies in his stomach. The feed switched to a ground-based view as the spacecraft landed gently in an area secured for this historic event. A hatch opened slowly, and a figure emerged, followed by several others. They were tall, with shimmering blue skin that seemed to ripple with their movements, and they wore flowing garments that glistened under the sun. The lead Thaloshan, who they later learned was named Lyra, stepped forward to the microphone set up for her. Her voice, when she spoke, was clear and resonant, immediately calming. "People of Earth, I am Lyra, a biologist and representative of the loss. We received your signal and understood it as a call for interaction. We come in peace and hope for fruitful dialogue between our species." The hall erupted in applause, diplomats and scientists alike expressing their excitement and welcome. Hayes gestured for silence and addressed Lyra. "We are honored by your visit and look forward to learning from each other. Dr. Nolan here will be your liaison during your stay." Eric nodded, stepping forward. "Welcome to Earth, Lyra. We have prepared a series of meetings and tours to introduce you to our planet and discuss potential areas of cooperation." Lyra nodded, her expression one of curiosity and openness. "We are eager to begin. Your world is very different from ours, and there is much we wish to understand." As the initial meeting wrapped up, Alan and Max approached Lyra and her delegation. They exchanged pleasantries and discussed the technologies used by both civilizations. Lyra was particularly interested in human environmental technologies, which aligned with her background as a biologist. "Your oceanic research must be fascinating," Max said, finding common ground. "We have similar interests in marine biology." "Yes, our planet is mostly water, and we have developed unique ways to live with and within our seas," Lyra explained. "Perhaps a visit to your oceanic research facilities would be informative." "We'd be honored to arrange that," Alan chimed in, eager to facilitate an exchange of knowledge. Over the next few days, Lyra and her team were taken to various scientific, cultural, and historical sites. Eric, Alan, and Max were almost always by their side, facilitating discussions and sharing insights. The bonds between the human hosts and their Thaloshan guests deepened, marked by a growing respect and mutual curiosity. One evening, as they viewed the sunset from a coastal research facility, Lyra stood beside Eric, watching the horizon. "Your planet is beautiful," she said, her voice reflective. "It is very different from ours, yet there are similarities in how we cherish our homes." Eric nodded, sensing the importance of this mission beyond the scientific and diplomatic achievements. "Perhaps that's the best place to start, with what we share. From there, who knows what we can achieve together?" As the sun dipped below the ocean, the fading light reflected off the water, mirroring the hope and potential of this new interstellar relationship. The chapter closes on this serene image, symbolizing the peaceful beginning of Earth's connection with the Thaloshans. Chapter 4. A Misunderstanding Cleared. The following morning, the atmosphere at the Coastal Research Facility was vibrant as preparations for a joint seminar between Earth scientists and the Thaloshan delegates were underway. Dr. Eric Nolan and Dr. Alan Torres were discussing the day's schedule when Dr. Max Jensen approached, a slight frown on his face. "Eric, Alan, we might have a small issue," Max began, looking between the two. "What's wrong?" Eric asked, his brow furrowing. "It's about the signal that initiated this contact. I think we misunderstood its original intent," Max explained, pulling up data on his tablet. "Look here. The patterns don't suggest a distress signal as we first thought." Alan leaned over to look at the data. "You mean they weren't calling for help?" "Exactly," Max confirmed. "It seems more like a broadcasted scientific survey, not a cry for assistance." Eric rubbed his temples, sighing. "We need to clarify this with Lyra immediately. It's crucial we operate on a foundation of transparency." Gathering in a small conference room, Eric and Max sat down with Lyra and her chief scientific advisor. The room, filled with light and equipped with translation devices, set the stage for a candid discussion. "Lyra, we've brought you here because there seems to be a misunderstanding about the initial signal your people sent," Eric began, his tone serious yet respectful. Lyra nodded, her expression turning thoughtful. "Yes, we were puzzled by your response as if to a distress call. Our signal was part of a galactic mapping project." Alan, who had joined the meeting quietly, added, "This clarifies a lot. There was never any danger then." "No danger," Lyra confirmed. "We were merely collecting data. Your response, however, intrigued us and suggested a readiness for contact we have seldom encountered." Max chimed in. "This is actually a relief. We can now focus on mutual scientific endeavors without the overshadowing concern of an emergency." The meeting then turned to discussions of potential collaborative projects, from environmental science to advanced computing. Lyra was particularly interested in human advancements in renewable energy, a concept her civilization valued deeply. "How do you manage your resources, considering the diversity of environments on Earth?" Lyra asked, genuinely curious. Alan took the lead, explaining various Earth technologies and strategies. "We've had our challenges, but learning to harness the sun, wind, and even the tides has helped us make great strides. I think there's much we can learn from each other," Lyra said, her tone optimistic. "Perhaps a visit to one of your power plants?" "An excellent idea," Max agreed. "We'll arrange for a tour of a solar energy farm tomorrow. It's one of the most efficient installations we have." As the meeting adjourned, the group felt a renewed sense of purpose. The misunderstanding had not only been cleared up, but had paved the way for deeper, more focused cooperation. Later that day, as they walked along the beach near the research facility, Eric and Lyra discussed the broader implications of their civilization's meeting. "It seems like our coming here was fated, despite the confusion," Lyra mused, looking out over the water. Eric smiled, watching the waves. "Maybe so. Sometimes a little misunderstanding can lead to great things." The chapter closes with both groups, human and Tholossian, feeling more connected and excited about their future endeavors. The clarity brought about by their honest discussions allowed them to plan more effectively for the days ahead, ensuring that both sides could benefit from the interstellar relationship. Chapter 5. Growing Closer. Dr. Alan Torres and Dr. Max Jensen were preparing for a special day with their Tholossian guests, planning a series of visits to Earth's natural and technological marvels. The first stop was the solar energy farm they had discussed the previous day. As the group toured the expansive fields of photovoltaic panels, Lyra and her colleagues marveled at the technology. "The efficiency of your solar capture is impressive," Lyra commented, her eyes reflecting the bright sunlight off the panels. "Thank you, Lyra," Alan replied, proud of the human achievement. "We've made significant advances in the past decade. What's the situation like on the Loss?" "Our solar technology is adapted for underwater use, capturing light that penetrates the ocean surface," Lyra explained. "But seeing this, I believe there's much we can adopt from each other." Max, who was documenting the visit on a camera, chimed in, It's all about adapting to our environments, isn't it? Perhaps we could explore an exchange program for our engineers. Lyra nodded enthusiastically. A splendid idea. Max collaboration could accelerate progress on both sides. After the solar farm, the next stop was the Natural History Museum, where Dr. Eric Nolan joined them. He guided the group through exhibits of Earth's diverse ecosystems and geological history. "This is our blue whale exhibit," Eric pointed out. "It's a favorite among visitors. I imagine it must be somewhat familiar to you, given Thalos's aquatic nature." Lyra was fascinated. "Indeed, we have similar creatures, though not quite as large. It's thrilling to see such parallels between our worlds." Throughout the day, the dialogue between the humans and Tholossians grew more personal and reflective. They shared not only scientific knowledge, but also personal anecdotes and insights into their cultures. As the sun began to set, the group found themselves at a scenic overlook, watching the skyline bathed in golden hues. Max set up his camera to capture the moment, and Alan pulled out some local snacks he had brought along for everyone to try. "Earth food is quite diverse," Alan said as he handed out small, wrapped packages. "These are called energy bars, nutritious and good for quick snacks." Lyra tasted one, her expression curious. "It's different but pleasant. On the Loss, we have a similar concept, though ours are based on seaweed and fish extracts. Maybe next time, you can bring some of those for us to try," Max suggested with a grin. Lyra laughed. "I will make sure of it. It's interesting how food can be such a fundamental part of one's culture." The conversation turned to more leisurely topics as they enjoyed the view. Max asked about Tholossian leisure activities, and Lyra described various forms of underwater games and arts. "Our people find relaxation in the flow of water," Lyra shared. "We have dances that mimic the ocean currents." "That sounds beautiful," Eric said, genuinely intrigued. "It's amazing how water is central to both our recreations, even if in different forms." As the evening progressed, the barriers between the two species continued to dissolve. They were no longer just diplomatic allies, but were becoming friends, learning from each other and growing closer through their shared experiences. The chapter closes as the group makes their way back to their vehicles, the stars beginning to twinkle in the night sky. Their conversations linger in the air, a blend of laughter and the excited planning of future collaborations. The day had not only been a journey through human technology and culture, but a significant step toward building a deep, lasting bond between Earth and the Loss. Chapter 6. A Gesture of Peace. The day began with a palpable sense of excitement as Alan Torres and Max Jensen prepared for what they hoped would be one of the most meaningful exchanges yet. They had arranged for the Tholossians to join them on an underwater expedition using a high-tech research submarine. It was a rare opportunity for both sides to explore Earth's ocean depths together. Standing on the deck of the research vessel, Alan adjusted his jacket against the brisk morning breeze. "This might be the closest we ever come to seeing the world through their eyes," he said to Max, watching as the Tholossian delegation, led by Lyra, stepped off their shuttle and approached. "Let's just hope they like what they see," Max replied, grinning as he waved them over. "Good morning, Lyra. Are you ready to meet Earth's deep-sea wonders?" Lyra smiled warmly, her eyes shimmering with excitement. "We are. The idea of exploring your oceans is thrilling to us. It feels familiar yet entirely new." The group exchanged pleasantries before moving inside the vessel. Alan and Max led a short briefing, explaining the submarine's features and the expedition's goals. The Tholossians, naturally adept in aquatic environments, listened intently. "Our descent will take us to a series of hydrothermal vents," Alan explained, gesturing to a map on a monitor. "These are some of the most unique ecosystems on Earth, teeming with life forms that thrive in extreme conditions." As the submarine began its dive, The view outside transformed into an otherworldly expanse of deep blue. The humans and Tholossians sat side by side, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of control panels. Lyra leaned closer to the window, her expression one of wonder. "Your oceans have such a different rhythm than ours. The currents are gentler, the colors richer. It's beautiful." Max, sitting nearby, chimed in, "Wait until you see the vents. They're like underwater volcanoes, surrounded by creatures that look straight out of science fiction." As the submarine reached the seafloor, the hydrothermal vents came into view, spewing clouds of mineral-rich water. The surrounding area was alive with bizarre organisms, tube worms, giant clams, and bioluminescent fish. Lyra's colleague, a Tholossian geologist named Kai, marveled at the scene. "These ecosystems are extraordinary. They remind me of the deep trenches on our own planet, though the life forms here are far more diverse." Alan nodded. "It's incredible how life adapts to such extremes. It's a reminder of how much we still have to learn." As they navigated closer to the vents, the conversation grew more animated. The Tholossians shared insights about similar formations on their world, while the humans explained the science behind Earth's underwater ecosystems. It was a lively exchange of knowledge, punctuated by moments of awe as new wonders appeared outside the window. Then, without warning, a sudden shift in the submarine's balance sent everyone gripping their seats. The pilot, a seasoned researcher named Captain Harris, quickly assessed the situation. "We're caught in an unexpected current," he said, his voice calm but focused. "It's stronger than what we anticipated." The submarine began to tilt as the current pulled it closer to a jagged outcropping of rock. Alan and Max exchanged a worried glance, and Lyra leaned forward, her demeanor steady but concerned. "Can we stabilize?" Alan asked, his voice tense. "I'm trying," Harris replied, "adjusting the controls. But we need to work quickly to avoid getting stuck." Lyra stood and approached the pilot station. "Captain Harris, may I offer assistance? I have experience navigating strong currents." Harris hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Be my guest." Lyra and Kai worked alongside Harris, analyzing the flow patterns on the sonar display. Alan and Max assisted by relaying data from the monitors. It was a tense, collaborative effort, with everyone contributing their expertise. "Adjust the angle by 2 degrees to the left," Kai suggested. "That should counteract the pull of the current." "Done," Harris said, following the instruction. The submarine responded, leveling out slightly but still struggling against the current. Max tapped a screen, his voice breaking the tension. "There's a comma pocket of water just ahead. If we can reach it, we'll be in the clear." "Redirecting now," Harris confirmed, his hands steady on the controls. The submarine finally broke free of the current, gliding into the comma zone. A collective sigh of relief filled the cabin, and Lyra turned to the humans with a small, grateful smile. "That was a remarkable display of teamwork," she said. "You adapt well to challenges." Alan grinned, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. "We couldn't have done it without your help." "That was impressive navigation." Max chuckled. "Guess we make a pretty good team, humans and Tholossians." The group spent the remainder of the dive in lighter spirits, marveling at the seafloor's wonders with a renewed sense of camaraderie. By the time they resurfaced, the bond between the humans and Tholossians had grown even stronger, forged in the shared experience of overcoming a challenge together. As they stepped back onto the deck, the sunlight sparkling on the ocean's surface, Alan turned to Lyra. "Today wasn't just about exploring our oceans. It was about building trust, and I think we've taken a big step forward." Lyra nodded, her expression warm. "I agree, Alan. Trust is the foundation of every meaningful connection. The chapter closes with the group watching the horizon, the waves gently lapping against the vessel. They had not only explored the depths of Earth's oceans, but also deepened the connection between their worlds, setting the stage for even greater collaboration. Chapter 7. An Intergalactic Celebration. The Grand Hall at the United Nations headquarters had been transformed for an unprecedented event, a gala celebrating the growing bond between Earth and the Loss. Flags of every nation were displayed alongside shimmering banners that represented the aquatic world of the Tholossians. The air was filled with a mix of excitement and curiosity as dignitaries, scientists, and journalists from around the globe gathered to witness this historic occasion. Dr. Alan Torres adjusted his tie for the third time in as many minutes. "Do I look okay?" he asked, glancing at his reflection in a nearby glass panel. "You look fine," Dr. Max Jensen replied, slapping Alan on the back. "Relax. This is supposed to be a celebration, not a formal tribunal." Alan gave him a nervous grin. "Easy for you to say. You're not giving the opening speech." "True," Max said with a smirk, "but if you faint up there, I'll make sure the video goes viral." "Thanks for the support," Alan muttered, shaking his head. The Tholossians entered the hall with their characteristic grace, their shimmering blue skin and flowing garments catching the light in mesmerizing ways. Lyra led the delegation, her serene expression exuding confidence. She made her way to Alan and Max, offering a polite nod. "You both seem tense," she observed with a slight smile. "Is this event making you nervous?" "A little," Alan admitted. "Public speaking isn't exactly my forte." "Don't worry," Max interjected. "He's got a great speech prepared. It'll be fine." Lyra placed a gentle hand on Alan's arm. "I'm sure you'll do well. You have a way of speaking from the heart, and that's what matters most." Alan felt a warmth rise in his chest, and he nodded, her encouragement calming his nerves. "Thanks, Lyra. That means a lot." The evening began with a series of speeches from Earth's leaders and Tholossian representatives. Each spoke of the importance of interstellar cooperation, emphasizing the shared values and mutual respect that had grown between their civilizations. When it was Alan's turn to speak, he approached the podium with a mix of anxiety and determination. Taking a deep breath, he addressed the audience. "A few weeks ago, we couldn't have imagined this moment. We received a signal from the stars, and instead of ignoring it, we answered. What followed was an extraordinary journey, not just of discovery, but of connection. Tonight, we celebrate not only our differences, but also the common ground we've found." His words were met with enthusiastic applause, and Alan stepped down from the podium feeling a surge of relief. Max greeted him with a grin. "Told you it'd be fine." As the formal portion of the evening gave way to mingling and celebration, music filled the hall. A band played a mix of Earth and Tholossian compositions, blending the two cultures in a harmonious symphony. Alan found himself standing near the dance floor, watching as humans and Tholossians moved to the music. "Do you dance?" Lyra's voice came from behind him. Alan turned to find her standing there, her expression curious. "Not well," he admitted, "but I can try." "Good," she said, taking his hand. "I'd like to experience one of your Earth dances." Alan led her onto the dance floor, their hands still clasped. The music was a slow, melodic tune that made the movements easy to follow. Lyra watched his steps closely, mimicking them with surprising grace. "You're a natural," Alan said, smiling. "I'm merely following your lead," she replied, her voice soft. "It's an interesting custom, this sharing of movement. It feels intimate." Alan felt his pulse quicken at her words. "It is, I suppose. It's about trust, letting someone guide you while finding a rhythm together." As the dance continued, they became more attuned to each other's movements. The room seemed to fade away, leaving only the music and the connection between them. Alan noticed the faint luminescence of Lyra's skin and the way her eyes seemed to shimmer under the lights. "You're staring," she said, a playful note in her voice. "Sorry," he said, looking away briefly. "I was just... You look incredible." Lyra tilted her head, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she smiled. "Thank you, Alan. I find you intriguing as well." Their dance ended, but they remained close, caught in a moment that felt both timeless and fragile. Lyra reached out, brushing her fingers against Alan's cheek, her touch warm and gentle. "Your world has shown me so much beauty," she said, "and yet I find myself most captivated by you." Alan felt a lump in his throat, unsure of how to respond. Finally, he said, "I feel the same. I never thought this would happen, but I'm glad it has." Their faces drew closer, and for a moment the world around them seemed to hold its breath. When their lips met, it was a soft, tentative kiss that spoke of both curiosity and connection. It was a bridge between two worlds, a quiet affirmation of what they had built together. Max, standing at the edge of the dance floor, raised an eyebrow as he watched. "Well, that's one way to strengthen interstellar relations," he muttered to himself, smiling. The night continued with laughter, music, and the forging of new friendships. But for Alan and Lyra, it was a night that marked the beginning of something far more personal, a connection that transcended the boundaries of their species. As the gala wound down, Alan and Lyra stood by the balcony, looking out at the city lights. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now," Lyra said, her voice steady, "we see where this takes us. Together." The chapter ends with them standing side by side, the stars above serving as a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the possibilities that lay ahead. Chapter 8. United Futures. The early morning light filtered through the expansive windows of the communication hub where it all began. Alan Torres and Max Jensen sat at their familiar workstation, reviewing the final transmission logs from the Tholossian ship. It was their last day on Earth before their visitors would return to their home planet. Max leaned back in his chair, stretching. "It's hard to believe it's almost over. Feels like they just got here." Alan nodded, his gaze fixed on the data. "It's not over, Max. It's just the start of something bigger. But yeah, it'll be strange not seeing them around." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps. Turning, they saw Lyra approaching, her elegant movements as mesmerizing as ever. She was flanked by Kai, her scientific advisor, who carried a small case in his hands. "Good morning," Lyra greeted, her voice warm. "I hope we're not interrupting." "Not at all," Alan said, standing. "We were just going over some of the data from the expedition." Kai stepped forward, holding out the case. "This is for your team, a gesture of gratitude from the loss. Inside are samples of our deep-sea minerals and biological specimens, carefully preserved for your researchers." Max accepted the case, his eyes lighting up. "This is incredible. Thank you, Kai. Our scientists will be thrilled." Lyra turned her attention to Alan. "I was hoping to speak with you privately before we leave. Would you join me for a walk?" Alan hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Of course." They stepped outside into the crisp morning air, the base bustling with preparations for the Tholossians' departure. Alan and Lyra walked in silence for a few moments before she spoke. "This experience has been transformative for my people," Lyra said, her voice thoughtful. "It's not just the knowledge we've gained, but the relationships we've built. And for me, it's been more personal than I expected." Alan glanced at her, his heart racing slightly. "I feel the same. I never thought something like this could happen, not just between our worlds, but between us." Lyra stopped, turning to face him. "When I return to the loss, my duties will require my full attention. But that doesn't mean I want to lose what we found here, Alan." Alan smiled faintly, his mind racing with possibilities. "You won't. We'll find a way to keep in touch, even if it means stretching the limits of our technology. And if there's ever a chance to visit the loss, I'd like to see your world." Her expression softened. "You would be welcome. Our people have much to learn from you, and I would be honored to show you the beauty of my home." As they continued their walk, Alan couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. The bond he shared with Lyra was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, and the thought of her leaving was bittersweet. By mid-afternoon, the Thaloshan delegation gathered at the shuttle site. A crowd of dignitaries, scientists, and curious onlookers had formed, eager to witness the farewell. Alan and Max stood at the front, alongside Eric Nolan and other key figures. Lyra approached Alan one last time, holding a small, intricately designed device. "This is a communicator," she explained. "It operates on a frequency unique to our technology. Use it if you ever need to reach me." Alan accepted it, his fingers brushing hers. "I will. And thank you. For everything." As the Thaloshans boarded their shuttle, the engines began to hum softly, signaling their imminent departure. The crowd erupted in applause, a final send-off for their new allies. Max leaned over to Alan, grinning. "You're really going to miss her, aren't you?" Alan didn't answer immediately, his eyes fixed on the shuttle. "Yeah," he finally said. "But I have a feeling this isn't the end." The shuttle lifted off, ascending into the sky with a smooth grace that left everyone in awe. As it disappeared into the horizon, Alan felt a strange mix of sadness and hope. Later that evening, Alan sat alone at his workstation, the communicator Lyra had given him resting on the desk. He turned it over in his hands, wondering what the future held. The screen lit up with a soft glow, displaying a single word in both their languages. "Connected." A faint smile crossed his face. He tapped the device, and a familiar voice filled the room. "Alan, this is Lyra. I've just reached our ship. I wanted you to know. I'm thinking of you." The chapter closes with Alan leaning back in his chair, his heart lighter than it had been all day. The connection between their worlds was no longer just a professional achievement. It was deeply personal, a testament to what could be accomplished when curiosity and compassion guided the way. Together, humanity and the loss had taken the first steps into a future where the stars no longer seemed so far away.